What if Minecraft was an RPG? If you had access to a plethora of awesome weapons and numerous new enemies to challenge, how would it change your perspective of the overall world? Well, in May 2020, we got exactly that in the form of Minecraft Dungeons, and while worlds apart from its survival sandbox predecessor, it does give us a glimpse into the wider Minecraft universe. At the same time, it also begs the question, why? Why did we need a new Minecraft title? And more importantly, why was a dungeon crawler the style to choose? Welcome back to Kweebec Corner. My name is Connor, and today in the Development Circle, we take a turn away from Hytale to investigate how the world's biggest block game was able to convert aesthetic and gameplay into a whole new genre, why they made that choice rather than just updating the base Minecraft more, and whether these decisions will be effective enough in the long run.
This video is sponsored by ServerPro. ServerPro has everything you need to host the next big Hytale server. With support for modding and scripting, why not start your adventure today and grab a free Minecraft server which you can swap over once Hytale is launched.
Dungeons has been out for a considerable amount of time now, with let's plays, live streams, and even weapon guides and breakdowns all across YouTube. It's no surprise that this new Minecraft title took off like a rocket and reached viral heights. Not only does it take the brand in a new, vibrant direction, it also offers far more story, world building, and weapon variety compared to the base game. Combine all of that with the strip away of any ability to place or carry blocks, as well as the open world structure that players are used to, and you're left with a much more linear, challenging genre of game, more commonly known as dungeon crawlers. To preface, dungeon crawls are a specific area or type of scenario mainly found in fantasy roleplay games. Players take the role of heroes, venturing through generated environments and winding labyrinths or dungeons as they battle against foes in search of loot and treasure. Commonly, the environments will include obstacles, puzzles, and even hidden secrets that players in a party can work together to discover and overcome. Many games that focus the majority of their gameplay within these dungeon crawls are identified as their own unique genre, dungeon crawlers. The role you play is key within these games, often reflected in how you traverse the map and handle combat scenarios. Many crawlers have you choose a player class, an archetypal character that limits your playability and allows you to specialize in something like brute strength tanking, ranged damage, or even healing. The goal is often to progress whilst upgrading your armor, weaponry, and magic power, while also unraveling whatever thinly veiled storyline ties each level together. Most crawlers attempt to balance three things to achieve great gameplay: exploration, combat, and puzzles. Story falls secondary to all of the latter. Due to the simplicity and mostly linear progressive structure, player expectation for a deep plot tends to be limited. A decent enough coating of narrative is usually enough to suffice, but of course there are many examples that push the boat out in terms of world building. Minecraft Dungeons doesn't do that, however. In fact, the game doesn't aim to break the mold and rarely ever subverts expectation. The game could be best described as an excellently accessible first dungeon crawler experience, one that not only considers newer and younger players, but helps to bridge the gap towards a more complex genre using a simplistic, globally recognized game aesthetic. Crawlers, and generally most complex fantasy RPGs, have a high learning curve and barrier of entry. Players will take one look at Diablo and most likely not want to dive right in. People can look at a Dungeons & Dragons board and see endless adventure, while others see tedious dice rolls, character backstory rambling, and pointless made-up storylines. It's a flip of the coin, and more often than not, these games are catering to a specific niche too, so not only is that a flip of the coin of whether players feel your crawler is accessible enough, but also one on whether the player will even like rich fantasy RPG in the first place. The beauty in Minecraft Dungeons is that it's based in a pre-established property, a well-known franchise that many have grown up with and know. Millions of children, teens, and young adults play the game every day, a huge pool of potential waiting to attach themselves to anything Minecraft related. And that makes Dungeons a very approachable title for a huge age range, including not only longtime fans of Minecraft, but new players curious of the ARPG format. The Minecraft world is bigger than you think. Take one look at the success of Minecraft Story Mode, or the amount of downloads for Minecraft Earth. There's an education edition of the base game with chemical elements, codable bots, and dialogue NPCs. A platform for mobile, console, and Switch known as Bedrock. There's even 4 official novels that build on the universe, and let's not forget the mob bestiary. Here's a fun fact. Did you know there's over 15 exclusive mobs in Minecraft Earth? You know that AR game where you just can build a plot and walk around? Go check it out. You literally can't find these mobs in any other Minecraft property. There's no denying that the Minecraft universe is expanding, and quickly. And people love it. While Earth took Minecraft to an AR mobile platform after the spotlight of Pokemon Go, Story Mode hoped to take the narrative approach, making use of the viral Telltale format. Dungeons takes one look at crawlers and thinks, let's simplify this. And with the Minecraft brand at the helm, why not? What better way to simplify a less accessible genre and introduce it to a new audience? So let's take a look at what they did. Exploration. The game is played from a fixed third-person viewpoint, known as an isometric perspective. By angling the camera, a 3D effect is created, revealing much more detail than if you were to have it faced top-down or sideways. This is key for a Minecraft world made of blocks, where a sense of depth in the environment is so important. The developers clearly made lighting and aesthetic a huge focus, making use of a plethora of actual Minecraft blocks to form realistic structures with shading turned up to the max. While oftentimes builds will bend the rules of the world somewhat, there's always an interesting gimmick that relates the object back to Minecraft in some way, be it weapons that utilize a similar enchantment magic, or having a windmill made from wooden planks and a slanted roof blocks. Point being, the world looks good and doesn't fail to immerse you from the get-go, an extension of the Minecraft world. With Dungeons, you definitely get what you paid for. The runtime of the main game equates to its $20 price tag, with promised DLC in the future. The level pacing does leave something to be desired, however. While similar to Minecraft in that each level is randomly generated, it kind of falls short. More specifically, the routes and pathways are generated randomly, but each environment or cell, which identifies an area of the map, is pre-built. That means you only have a select amount of these cells to make up any level, and they are often repurposed or simply rotated in various ways to add new effects. There's even staple rooms that stay pretty much identical from playthrough to playthrough, like the secret Easter egg rooms and even the boss rooms. Admittedly, there are some variables with every room, and the way that maps automatically structure themselves differently each time is cool, but more often than not I found myself chasing a dead end or wasting 3 to 5 minutes of time just for one chest, only to circle right back along an empty pathway. There are also expanses of level without any mobs or combat. You'd think here more challenging puzzles would be put in place, or maybe even a respawning mechanic, but there's very little, leading to huge contentless gaps between your branching pathways. And yes, while no one said adapting a block game to a new genre would be easy, you have to admit that Minecraft of all brands is the best fit. You could theoretically match it to any game type. The block-based nature is inherently useful for any type of world building or map making. Players have adapted to a world of colourful mods and showcases of content too. They're used to seeing the game receive cool changes and uncanny valley type entities. So when you combine with your redstone golem or your evil arch illager, players aren't going to be too taken aback. I can imagine these things spawning in the overworld of my Java game. I could imagine the arch illager being a boss within the woodland mansion. This game is grounded in the realism of the universe it borrows from, and does such a great job of adding to the meta while not insulting or desecrating the prior title. Let's not forget, there's also precedence for taking a complicated genre like an ARPG and creating a title that prompts accessibility. It not only widens the player pool, but it enhances the entire genre's industry and makes itself a staple game in some people's lives. Their first ARPG, just like how Minecraft was many people's first survival game. In a broader sense, Dungeons does do well to pace the player in terms of the gear provided and the amount of enemies thrown their way. Levels procedurally get longer, more complex, and enemies change up their attack patterns and spawn groupings to provide constant challenge and variable combat scenarios. In fact, some would go as far as to say that this game doesn't pose enough risk. Yes, there's 3 lives, but dying really has no punishment. There's no loss of currency, power, or inventory, just progress. This strongly reflects and contrasts the drastic stakes you have in the base survival game. Dungeons does make hack and slash feel nice. Not the best that it can be, but enough to satisfy a player from Minecraft used to very basic sword swings and arrow shots. The directional movement of click and move rather than WASD also takes time to get used to, but once you gain a bit more control and you start reaching those higher tier weapons, it feels satisfying to grind through the hordes, collecting the loot that drops. And with that, let's move on to combat. These newer areas and additions do sometimes feel alien to Minecraft, partly the introduction of brand new mobs and an evil antagonist who serves to drive the game's narrative forward. Even the weapons and armor are completely unseen in the regular Java edition, but to be honest, I think these all work in Dungeon's favour. Not allowing for the standard leather, iron, gold and diamond armor was a great choice. Having a plethora of strange artifacts and never before seen weapons reimagined in this pseudo-Minecraft style dramatically increases replayability, while single slot armor pieces help you spruce your lookup and provide much needed class customization. Speaking of classes, the weapons really do add the personality and diversity to your playstyle. You can even carry around 3 artifacts that help to accent your strategies, allowing for many fun combinations. From the start, all players are inherently the same, but depending on the loot you find, buy, or discard, you will carve out your own unique combat scenarios, from ranged exploding arrows to straight up mash and grind weapons, all of which feel very satisfying to use and well thought out. Not just this, but I loved seeing the added particle effects and weird and wacky ways that I could start to interact with the environment and groups of enemies during combat. Something that's important to note. Everyone is a healer in dungeons. Arrows are the only main resource you need to be sure to preserve other than your healing potion, and even in beta testing it was found that far too many could be picked up, so I think that rate was significantly reduced to create a more resource management heavy aspect for the final release. While it does add a bit of tension, it still pales in comparison to the way that Minecraft approaches the same thing, however. Enchantment style modifiers can be used on weapons and armor. These can be maxed out and upgraded to further achieve pretty hefty super weapon combinations. While a number of these enchantments are really cool and expand on current Minecraft magic, a lot of the classic ones we know are left out, such as the numerous protection enchantments for armor such as Projectile, Blast, and Fire Prot. I guess this is made up for with the awesome and definitely well-balanced enchantments that can be found, right? You'll understand why I'm being sarcastic about the balancing in a moment. Artifacts are a central item in the game. Unable to be modified, they act as special abilities in a sense, be it faster movement speed or being able to summon a wolf to help you. Finding a good mix of enchanted armor, weaponry, and artifacts is important. Again, artifacts are more there to complement your playstyle and enhance it. Your weapon choice and armor really is where your class comes in the most. And this is where my sarcasm about the balancing comes in a bit. It is clear from the get-go that there are weapons 10 times better than others. While the game tries to balance the cons and pros of certain categories, it's obvious to anyone with a brain that a base axe that can hit multiple targets is probably better than a simple sword. And maybe that's okay. Maybe everything doesn't need to be perfectly balanced. This game is meant to be played casually after all for the most part, and is aimed at a younger audience. Most will be attracted to the cooler, beefier weapons, and so them doing a lot more damage or being a bit cooler to use is just a natural necessity of a game like this. This is also a common trope of most ARPGs too. Many items and certain weapons tend to be thrown to the wayside or be less than valuable to certain players. Focusing on a specific class means only a small portion of the loot pool is actually viable to you. Whereas in dungeons, you can change up your build on the spot. You can pick up any item and become any class. Dungeons also aids this by making each item feel very specific and unique, but at the same time, I guarantee you'll get tired of scrapping Fox armor copies, so that's the con. While at times grinding mobs did feel tiresome and repetitive, I found that I started challenging myself to take on groups of mobs in more unusual ways. I started approaching encounters with different strategies and item combinations to see not only what felt right, but what felt fun. A large part of dungeons is maintaining that accessibility through and through. You don't want a roadblock like an extremely hard boss, and limiting the item pool or making mob grinding a tiresome, boring, and convoluted task could sour the mood of any players that are already uncertain on the genre. This game aims to make combat more enjoyable for everyone, and while it can get more and more challenging, the game always starts you off simple and allows you to build up a variety of ways to take on your foes. Dungeons doesn't throw everything at you at once. For the first few levels, mobs are fairly similar, with only a few new faces introduced each level. Your weapons are also very standard, with a special artifact being awarded after you complete the first stage, continuing to diversify the routes of finding these artifacts as you go on. This is a nice pace setter, and even allows for a tonal shift as you approach the darker endgame stages. As you approach the big bads, you become equipped with epic, legendary weapons that not only look strong, but feel like they are too. You get to those later, more claustrophobic levels, you begin to ask questions. You start to ask how it's best to approach. What's the best strategy going to be? What weapon loadout would work the fastest? And that's combat. Now we arrive at an area of the gameplay where I do feel Dungeons falls short. While the arcade-like layout of the levels helps to facilitate visual progression and the 3 lives model becomes increasingly more challenging as you reach higher stages of difficulty, the puzzles and even general objectives of each level do leave something to be desired. Puzzles are ludicrously simple, akin to standing on a pressure plate, and while a set of Easter eggs are spread out around the levels, a number of them are fairly obvious. You can find pretty much all loot provided you have the time to scour every corner of the map for a potentially hidden chest. There are also a number of areas in the game that look like setups, areas where something really interesting could happen, suggesting a player should interact, but in 8 out of 10 of these instances you end up finding nothing much at all. For a game with craft in the name, there is literally no crafting. You buy items when you're not finding them or killing pigs with chests on their back. and I feel like this is a significantly lacking factor. Even a bench that allowed you to combine items or craft something that could function as an Easter egg would have been worth the feature being included. I guess they could always adapt this further with the DLC as opposed to relying on the player's endless cycle of salvaging items. Stage progression is linear, bar the secret branched levels that can be discovered, and finding every artifact for each level isn't really a case of deciphering some sort of code or where they're hidden, more so just grinding the same level at increased difficulty until you get the rare drop. This is tiresome and repetitive. Also, a strange choice, and I guess this falls in both puzzle and combat, but bosses. They don't actually guarantee a drop once defeated. This is obscure and very unsatisfying when it occurs. It makes beating the level less about reward and more about repetitive, choresome gameplay, constantly replaying to get a rarer weapon to boost your stats and reach more hardcore level game. And that's what I have to say on the puzzles. All this time and money into making a completely new game, just like with Minecraft Earth. Why? Why expand the universe rather than just add all of this to the core game? And the answer to that is brand diversification. Giving unique identities to several titles helps set them apart, characterize them, and allows for Mojang as a studio to put Minecraft on multiple fronts at once. There is no evidence to suggest that Dungeons being developed has increased the time taken to make updates to Minecraft in any way. At this point, Mojang have enough money to hire many teams to make multitudes of games similar to Dungeons, whose development could run alongside that of the main game. The dynamic of dungeon runs in Minecraft Dungeons would be really difficult to translate into the regular Minecraft style without creating instances and very awkward segmented scripting. Minecraft would not only have to overhaul its combat, but also significantly change the meta, making it far more viable to just create a wholly new game, a new experience altogether. And how can Hytale learn from this? We know there are categories of weapon and armor that allow you to form your own class, but will the dungeons of Hytale be as linear and lacking? Will fights with hordes feel fun, and will loot we find be worthwhile? Think about it. Hytale is a somewhat similar case. While lacking any official ties to Mojang, the team were inspired by Minecraft and the block game genre, and aimed to bring characteristics of both survival and RPG together to form a new experience. And yes, while Hytale definitely floats more on the side of sandbox than a dungeon crawler, it includes some staple features of both, like randomly generated dungeons that can be found in an open world. Let me know in the comments what you think Hytale may take from the player experience of Minecraft Dungeons. While classes are usually defined at the beginning of games, with both Dungeons and Hytale, you as the character are able to pick and choose, swap through different items to form your own playstyle. While Dungeons UI does hover on the clunky side, it's tedious, this method does allow for versatility. And Hytale is already promising a radial wheel that will help users better combine different weapon combinations for extensive combat variation. And that's Minecraft Dungeons, a game that couldn't be made in Minecraft and a game that was best adapted to a genre that needed simplification. Setting a benchmark for the current standard Mojang is willing to provide, games like this do have a place in the ecosystem of the medium. Access titles are very important after all, and there's precedence for simplification. But does Dungeons veer too close to over-simplification? There are no shields as are common for Minecraft combat, enchantments are singular and don't form extensive branching talent trees. There are no separate armor pieces, rather just all in one sets. Some may say the developers may have played it too safe, keeping features slightly too reserved, but hopefully the two promised DLCs will expand these feature pools and then some. Overall, the straightforward storyline of Minecraft Dungeons lets players of all ages jump in instantly with a set purpose. Whether you're a dedicated Minecraft fan or just a novice, the villagers are easy enough to understand, as are the hordes of enemies hellbent on destroying you. Dungeons doesn't subvert classic ARPG expectations for the most part, but does allow for new users to break through by forging their own classes and pacing themselves through difficulty and exploration in a world they find familiar. We finally got to the end. I know this video was a little different. While it could slightly be linked to Hytale, I know the direction is a tad off from the usual content I produce. If you would like more video essays like these about development and design of certain games, then feel free to let me know. I love making them, and I love diving into new worlds to see how they were built. As of today, the Minecraft team I work with have also officially launched the next partnered Minecraft Bedrock server known as Galaxite. You can download the 1.16 update and join right now to find some amazing original takes on classic game modes, special rewards, a friend system, and many cool features. We're also getting to the end of the month, and we expect to see a Hytale blog post soon, so make sure to stick around for that later in the week. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and thanks as always for watching Kweebec Corner. Stay safe and keep free.